The mortuary's been in my family for 4 generations. I inherited it the way some people inherit debts or genetic conditions, something that passes down whether you want it or not. My father retired last spring. He didn't explain why. He simply walked out one Thursday morning after finishing his coffee, took off his apron, and told me the building was mine now. He hasn't been back since. The building itself is older than anyone in town can remember. Victorian bones with 20th century additions grafted on like skin over scar tissue. We renovated in the 70s, again in the 90s, and once more 5 years ago when the county updated fire codes. But certain parts of the structure resist modernization. The basement still has the original stone foundation. The prep room still uses the same drains. Some things you inherit. Some things you maintain. I run a quiet operation. Private families, referrals from local hospitals, the occasional coroner transfer when the county facility's overbooked. I don't advertise. I don't need to. People know we've been here. They know we do good work. Clean, professional, respectful. The kind of work that doesn't require questions. The call came in late on a Tuesday, 9:47 in the evening. I was finishing inventory in the supply room when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. The voice on the other end belonged to a man named Garrett, a foreman with a demolition company working on the east side of town. They'd been tearing down condemned properties, houses that sat empty for decades, structures too damaged or too old to salvage. Standard urban renewal project, municipal contracts, nothing unusual. Except, they'd found something. One of the houses had a sealed space beneath the basement. Not a cellar, exactly. More like a room that had been deliberately walled off and forgotten. The crew broke through thinking it was just dead space, maybe old storage. Instead, they found a body. Perfectly preserved. Female. No visible decomposition. Garrett spoke carefully, the way people do when they're trying to stay professional while something inside them is screaming. The police had been called. They documented the scene, taken photographs, determined there was no crime to investigate. The structure was too old, the body too well preserved. No missing persons matched the description. The detective on site called it historical remains, likely from before modern record keeping. They needed someone to take custody, someone discreet. I told him I'd be there in 30 minutes. The house was on Pruitt Street, a row of derelict buildings that had been slowly collapsing for the better part of 20 years. The demolition company had set up portable lights around the site, harsh white beams cutting through the November darkness. I parked behind their trucks and walked across the debris field, picking my way through broken brick and splintered wood. Garrett met me at what used to be the front entrance. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with the kind of exhaustion that comes from seeing something you can't unsee. He led me down into the basement without speaking. The sealed room was small, maybe 8 feet by 10. The walls were brick, older than the house above them. Someone had mortared them shut from the outside, sealing the space completely. No windows, no ventilation. When the crew broke through, they said the air that came out was cold and still, and it smelled like nothing at all. The body lay on a stone slab in the center of the room, wrapped in linen that had yellowed with age, but hadn't rotted. The fabric was bound with twine in a specific pattern, looped and knotted at precise intervals. I recognized the method immediately. It was called the Dresden wrap, a funerary technique my family used to practice. My grandfather taught it to my father. My father never taught it to me. He said it wasn't used anymore. He said there were better ways to prepare remains. I'd only seen it once before, in an old manual stored in the basement office. Black and white photographs demonstrating the process step by step. The manual was dated 1904. I helped Garrett and his crew transfer the body to my van. We used a plastic sheet and worked carefully, treating her with the same respect we'd give any deceased person. No one spoke. When we finished, Garrett handed me a manila envelope containing the police report and the site documentation. As I was leaving, he asked me a question. He asked if I knew what the room had been used for. I told him I didn't. That was true. I didn't know. Not yet. Back at the mortuary, I wheeled the body down the prep room and locked the door behind me. The room is windowless, sterile, equipped with everything necessary for my work. Stainless steel table, overhead lights, surgical instruments arranged on trays, a drain in the center of the floor that connects to pipes older than anyone alive. I unwrapped the linen carefully, documenting each layer. The fabric came away easily, as if it had been waiting. Underneath, the body was completely intact. No signs of decay, no discoloration. Her skin had the wax quality of adipocere, the soap-like substance that forms when remains are kept in sealed, airless environments. But the preservation was far more complete than it should have been. She appeared to be in her 30s, no visible trauma, no identifying marks. Her hands were positioned at her sides, fingers straight. Her face was peaceful, eyes closed, mouth relaxed. She looked like she'd been prepared by someone who knew what they were doing, someone who'd been trained. I began the external examination, working methodically. Measured her height, noted the condition of her hair and nails, checked for jewelry or clothing remnants. Found nothing, except the linen wrapping and the twine. Then, I noticed her hands. There were marks on her palms, faint striations, like healed scars. The pattern was regular, deliberate. I'd seen something similar before in the old manual. My grandfather's notes mentioned why certain preparations required specific markings. He called them organizational indicators, ways to categorize and track the work. I photographed everything. Then, I began the autopsy. The first incision ran from the sternum to pubis, the standard Y-cut used in every post-mortem examination. The scalpel moved slowly through preserved tissue. No resistance, no blood, just a clean separation of skin and underlying fascia. What I found inside made me pause. Her ribs were fractured, multiple breaks, all healed, all old. The fracture pattern suggested repeated trauma over an extended period, but her exterior showed no corresponding damage, no bruising, no skeletal deformities, just perfect, unmarked skin. I continued deeper. Her internal organs were intact, but displaced. The liver sat slightly higher than normal. The stomach was compressed. Her intestines were carefully arranged, almost deliberately positioned, as if someone had opened her before and put everything back with precision. That's when I found the first foreign object. It was lodged between her third and fourth ribs, a small bundle of threads, bound tightly, dark with age. I extracted it carefully and placed it in a specimen dish. The threads were silk, hand-spun, old enough that they should have disintegrated, but hadn't. I found more as I worked. Beneath her diaphragm, a compress of ash wrapped in cloth. Inside her abdominal cavity, small leather pouches containing organic material I couldn't immediately identify. I found more as I worked. Beneath her diaphragm, a compress of ash wrapped in cloth. Inside her abdominal cavity, small leather pouches containing organic material I couldn't immediately identify. Each object placed with surgical precision, each one carefully preserved. None of it belonged there. None of it made medical sense. I stepped back from the table and removed my gloves. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was fatigue. I'd been working for hours without a break. The prep room was cold. The overhead lights hummed with a frequency that made my teeth ache. But I knew what I was seeing. I'd known since I unwrapped the body and recognized the Dresden method. I'd known since I saw the marks on her palms. I walked upstairs to the basement office and pulled out the old filing cabinets my father had left behind. 4 drawers of yellowed paperwork dating back to 1897. Intake forms, preparation logs, family records written in my great-grandfather's precise handwriting. I found what I was looking for in the 3rd drawer, a ledger bound in black leather. Pages thick with notations, each entry documented in a specific preparation. Date, name, method used, special considerations. The entry stopped in 1952, the year my grandfather died. I flipped through the pages, reading descriptions of techniques I'd never heard of. procedures that went far beyond standard embalming, methods that involved opening the body multiple times over months or years, instructions for placing specific materials inside the deceased, notes about maintaining the body indefinitely. One phrase appeared repeatedly throughout the ledger: for transfer and containment. I found the entry I was looking for near the end of the book. No name listed, just a date, October 12th, 1948, and an address. The same address where the demolition crew found her. The preparation notes were extensive. Multiple procedures performed over the course of 3 years. Each session carefully documented. Materials placed inside the body. Specific incisions made and sealed. The Dresden wrap applied as the final step. At the bottom of the entry, my grandfather had written a single line in red ink: basement storage, do not disturb. Sealed, 1951. I sat in the office for a long time, staring at the ledger. The building was silent around me. The kind of silence that feels like pressure, like something waiting. I thought about my father leaving without explanation. I thought about the things he'd never taught me, the questions he'd refused to answer when I asked about the family history, the way he'd always avoided certain parts of the mortuary. I went back down to the prep room. The body lay exactly as I'd left it, opened and exposed, the internal organs visible under the bright surgical lights. I continued the autopsy. What else could I do? The fractures in her ribs told a story. Each break corresponded to a different time period. The oldest fractures, fully healed and remodeled, were decades old. The newest, only partially healed, dated to within months of her final sealing. Her spine showed similar patterns: compression fractures at multiple levels, evidence of trauma applied systemically over years. But it wasn't random violence. Each injury had been carefully controlled, precise, the kind of damage someone would inflict if they were trying to create space inside the body, room for objects, room for storage. I found more foreign materials as I worked deeper: scraps of paper with writing too faded to read, small metal tags stamped with numbers, glass vials containing liquids that had long since evaporated, leaving only crystalline residue behind. Every object was placed inside her with surgical precision. Her body had been used as a container, a repository. But for what? I thought about the ledger upstairs, the phrase that kept appearing: for transfer and containment. Transfer of what? Containment of what? I removed my gloves and walked to the small washroom attached to the prep room, turned on the cold water, splashed it across my face. When I looked up into the mirror above, I saw my father's face looking back at me. Same tired eyes, same worried expression he'd worn the last years before he left. The temperature in the prep room had dropped. I could see my breath condensing in small clouds. The overhead lights flickered once, then steadied. The building was old. Electrical problems were common. Nothing unusual. Except the thermostat read 72 degrees. I returned to the body and continued working. My hands moved automatically, following procedures I'd performed hundreds of times. But I wasn't thinking about technique anymore. I was thinking about what my grandfather had written, about 3 years of preparations, about the deliberate placement of objects inside her. I was thinking about what those objects might represent. The human body contains a finite amount of space. Organs fit together in specific ways, held by connective tissue and membranes. You can't just add things without removing something else, without making room. Unless you're not trying to add to the body, unless you're trying to replace what's already there. I found the structure in her chest cavity, just beneath the heart. It wasn't anatomical. It wasn't organic. It was assembled. Small fragments of bone arranged in a lattice pattern, threads woven between them, objects embedded in the framework, the metal tags, the glass vials, the compressed ash, all of it connected, all of it part of a larger whole. It looked like a diaphragm, like a map, like something designed to contain and organize. I stepped back from the table. My heart was beating too fast. The prep room felt smaller than it had moments ago. The walls closer. I pulled out my phone and called my father. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I went back upstairs to the office and retrieved the ledger, brought it down to the prep room and laid it open on the counter. I compared the entries to what I was seeing inside the body. Each preparation session listed in the ledger corresponded to a different object or structure I'd found. The dates matched. The methods matched. My grandfather had been meticulous. He documented everything, including the purpose. At the very back of the ledger, past the last dated entry, was a page I'd missed before. No dates, no names, just a single paragraph written in my grandfather's handwriting, shakier than the early entries, but still legible. It read, "The work continues because it must. What we take from the town must be stored. What we store must be maintained. Each generation inherits both the business and the burden. The mortuary was built for this. The basement was designed for this. We do not choose the work. The work chooses us." Below that, a final line. "When the time comes, you will know. You will finish what was started. You will prepare the next container." I read it 3 times. Then I closed the ledger. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't stabilize immediately. They dimmed, stayed dim for 5 seconds, then slowly brightened. During those 5 seconds, I heard something, a sound from deeper in the building, from the original basement, the part with the stone foundation that predated everything else. It sounded like a door closing, softly, deliberately. I walked out of the prep room and down the hallway. The building was dark, except for the emergency exit signs and the light spilling from the prep room behind me. My footsteps echoed on the old tile floor. The basement door was at the end of the hallway, solid oak, original to the building. I'd been down there 1,000 times. Storage mostly, old equipment, archived files, nothing unusual. I opened the door. The stairs descended into darkness. The light switch at the top of the stairs didn't work. It hadn't worked in years. I used my phone as a flashlight and started down. The temperature dropped with each step. By the time I reached the bottom, my breath was visible in thick clouds. The basement stretched out before me, divided into rooms by old brick walls. I knew the layout by heart. Storage to the left, file archives to the right, the old furnace room straight ahead. Except there was another door, one I'd never noticed before. It was set into the far wall, recessed slightly, almost hidden in shadow. Solid wood, no handle, just a keyhole. The door was old, original construction, maybe older. The wood had the same aged quality as the foundation stones. I walked toward it without thinking. My hand reached out and touched the surface. The wood was cold, unnaturally cold. The door swung open. Inside was a room I'd never seen. Small, maybe 10 feet square. Stone walls on all sides. A single table in the center. And on that table, covered with a white sheet, was another body. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I lifted the sheet. The body underneath was male, elderly, dressed in preparation clothes. His hands were positioned the same way, straight at his sides. His chest bore the same marks I'd seen on the woman upstairs. Faint striations on the skin, the telltale signs of Dresden method. I recognized his face immediately. It was my grandfather. I backed away from the table. My mind tried to process what I was seeing. My grandfather died in 1952. I'd never met him. There were photographs in my family albums upstairs. This was him. Same features, same build. But he wasn't decomposed. He was preserved, perfectly intact, waiting. I turned to leave and found the door was gone. No handle, no seam, just solid stone wall. I spent 10 minutes searching for a way out, running my hands over every surface, looking for hidden mechanisms or concealed openings. There was nothing. The room was sealed from the inside. Finally, I stopped searching. I stood in the center of the room and understood. The mortuary had been built for this. The basement had been designed for this. My grandfather had prepared himself the same way he prepared the woman in the demolition site. The same way his father had probably prepared him. The same way every generation had prepared the one before. We do not choose the work. The work chooses us. I went back upstairs. The door appeared again and opened behind me. I went back upstairs. The door at the top of the basement stairs opened easily. The hallway lights were on. Everything was normal. In the prep room, the woman's body lay on the table exactly as I'd left it. I looked at the structure inside her chest, the carefully arranged fragments, the organized containment of whatever my family had been storing for generations. I understood what needed to be done. I spent the next 6 hours finishing the autopsy properly. I documented every object I found. I photographed the structure from multiple angles. I took samples of the foreign materials and stored them in label containers. I worked methodically, professionally, the way I'd been trained. When I finished, I closed the incisions. I prepared the body using the Dresden method, followed the instructions from my grandfather's manual step by step. I wrapped her in new linen. I tied the knots at the precise intervals. I positioned her hands correctly. Then I carried her down to the basement. The door in the far wall was open now. Inside, my grandfather's body was gone. In its place was an empty table, waiting. I placed the woman on the table and covered her with a clean white sheet. When I stepped back onto the main basement, the door closed on its own. This time, I heard it lock. I went back upstairs and cleaned the prep room, sanitized the table, put away the instruments, filed the documentation in the basement office, adding my own notes to the records. The work was complete. The sun was rising when I finally left the building. Wednesday morning, November frost on the windows of my car. The streets were empty, except for a few early commuters. I drove home and slept for 12 hours. When I woke, I checked my phone. There was a message from my father. Just 3 words. "You'll understand now." I deleted it without responding. The mortuary's been in my family for 4 generations. Now it's mine. The building, the business, the work. I reopened the next day. A family called about arrangements for their mother. I scheduled the consultation for Thursday afternoon. Everything was normal, professional, clean. Last week, I met with a contractor about renovations. The basement needs updating. New drainage system, better lighting, a dedicated prep room downstairs with proper ventilation, room enough for 1 more table. My daughter turns 18 next year. She's expressed interest in the family business. She's asked about apprenticing, learning the trade. I told her we'd talk about it when she graduates. I told her there's a lot to learn, a lot to inherit. I told her the mortuary has been in our family for 4 generations. Soon, it will be 5. 2 years later. I wake up on the prep table with the overhead lights burning white above me. I can't move my arms. I can't turn my head. My body's completely still, locked in the atonia that comes with the deepest sleep. Except, I'm not asleep. I'm awake, fully conscious, aware of every sensation. My daughter stands beside the table, arranging instruments on the tray. She wears the same apron I wore for 20 years. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, laying out scalpels in order of size, positioning the specimen dishes, checking the sutures. She's learned well. I caved and mentored her for 1.5 years. I'm not afraid. That surprises me. I thought I would be terrified when this moment came. I thought I would fight it, resist it, scream against the inevitability of what my family has always done. But lying here, unable to move, I feel something else entirely. Something like relief. Something like power. She looks down at me, and her eyes meet mine. She knows I'm awake, and this is intentional. "It doesn't hurt," she says quietly. Grandfather's notes were very clear about that. The body's prepared in a way that processes sensations differently. You'll feel everything, but not as pain, as presence. I try to speak. My vocal cords won't respond. My lips won't move. Only my eyes can communicate, and she understands. "I know," she says. "I know you're ready." She's right. I am ready. I've been ready since the night I found my grandfather in the basement room, since the moment I understood what the mortuary was truly built for. The work doesn't diminish us. It transforms us. We become something larger than ourselves. We become vessels for what the town cannot hold. My daughter picks up the scalpel. The blade catches the light. "I'm going to begin now," she says. The first incision runs from my sternum to my navel. I feel the pressure of the blade, the separation of skin and fascia. But she's correct. There's no pain, only awareness. I can feel my body opening, feel the cool air of the prep room touching internal spaces that have never been exposed before. She works methodically, just as I taught her, spreading the incision with her tractors, exposing the abdominal cavity. Her hands are steady. She's done this dozens of times on the deceased. Now she's done it on the living. On me. I watch her face as she works. She's calm, professional. There's no hesitation in her movements. She reaches for the first object, a small bundle wrapped in aged cloth, and positions it carefully between my liver and stomach. I feel it settle into place. I feel it become a part of me. The sensation triggers something, a memory that isn't quite a memory. I understand suddenly, with absolute clarity, what happened that Thursday morning 2 years ago. My father didn't retire. The sensation triggers something, a memory that isn't quite a memory. I understand suddenly, with absolute clarity, what happened to my father. My father didn't retire. He didn't leave the building. He walked down to the basement after his coffee, took off his apron, and sealed himself in the room adjacent to where I will be placed. He's been there ever since, conscious and contained, holding what his generation collected. I can almost feel him now, somewhere in that stone foundation beneath me, still aware, still serving. The understanding brings not horror, but a strange sense of connection. We're part of the same structure now, father and son, separated by walls, but joined in purpose. "The first transfer," she says softly, "from the woman you prepared, what she contained now passes to you." As the object settles, I feel something flood into my awareness. Not a memory exactly, more like an impression. Violence, fear, something sharp and sudden that happened decades ago in a house that no longer exists. The town's pain, carefully extracted and stored, now flowing into me. She places another object, then another. Small leather pouches containing organic material, glass vials with crystalline residue. Compressed ash wrapped in silk. Compressed ash wrapped in silk, each one positioned with surgical precision in the spaces between my organs, each one carrying its own weight of contained trauma. My body accepts them, makes room for them. I feel my internal architecture shifting, organs displacing slightly to accommodate what I'm becoming. A repository, a container, a vessel for what cannot be allowed to disperse. The threads now, my daughter says. She weaves them between my ribs, looping them through small holes she drills in the bone. The sensation's intense, not painful, but overwhelming. I can feel the threads connecting everything inside me, creating a lattice that holds the foreign objects in place. creating structure from what was separate. I understand now what my grandfather meant, what my great-grandfather understood. And this is not a burden. This is a purpose. We do not simply bury the dead. We take what would poison the living and make it ours. We contain it. We hold it. We keep the town clean. Hours pass, maybe longer. Time becomes difficult to track. My daughter works with the same patient care I showed her during her apprenticeship. She places the final objects, metal tags stamped with dates, small fragments of bone arranged in specific patterns, and then begins to close the incisions. The sutures pull my skin together in neat rows. She works from bottom to top, sealing me closed, sealing everything inside. When she finishes, she steps back and examines her work. "The Dresden wrap," she says. She lifts a length of new linen, white and clean, and begins wrapping my body. The fabric passes over my chest, around my arms, down my legs. She ties the knots at precise intervals, the same pattern I used on the woman from the demolished house, the same pattern my grandfather used, the same pattern that stretches back to the beginning of our family's work. As she wraps, I feel the weight of what I carry becoming more integrated. The foreign objects inside me are no longer foreign. They're part of my structure now, part of what I am. I can feel decades of stored trauma, violence, pain, and sin collected from the town, all of it organized and contained within me. My daughter finishes the final knot and positions my hands at my sides, fingers straight. She covers me with a clean white sheet. "It's time," she says. She wheels the table toward the door. I feel the movement, the subtle shifts as we navigate the hallway. We descend into the basement. The temperature drops. The air becomes heavy with age and stone. The hidden door stands open, waiting. She wheels me inside the small room. The table where my grandfather once lay is gone. In its place, a new stone slab has been installed. She transfers me carefully, positioning my wrapped body on the cold surface. Before she leaves, she leans close. I can still see her. My eyes remain open. They'll remain open, staring upward at the stone ceiling. That will be my view for decades to come. "Thank you," she whispers, "for teaching me, for showing me what we really do here." She straightens and walks to the door. It closes with a soft final sound. I hear the lock engage. I'm alone in the darkness, fully conscious, unable to move. I can feel everything inside me, every object, every thread, every carefully stored piece of the town's history. I'm not one person anymore. I'm many. I'm a container for what they cannot hold. The work continues because it must. I don't sleep. I don't dream. I simply am. Years will pass this way. Decades, perhaps. My daughter will run the mortuary above me. She'll take the calls late at night. She'll prepare the deceased with care and professionalism. And when the time comes, when another body's discovered or another preparation is needed, she'll come down to this room and transfer what I contain to the next vessel. The cycle continues. The burden passes. The town remains clean.